I'm Trea Jensen, and I'm an artist who lives in Eastend, Saskatchewan. And welcome to my show. My show is Moon Beings, and it's based on the moon. And the stories we give the moon, and the names we've given the moon, our ancestors from way back, from all different cultures. And I was very intrigued with the stories of the moon, and as a child I always loved the moon. And in 2010 I had a dream about the moon and writing a story about the moon and the names and how that would represent, and also do paintings around that. And it took me a long time to get the show going, or to get the drawings going, but I had done some writing and some dreaming and meditating on the moon. And so this is my show, and you'll see different representations, and it's very folkloric, it's very graphic, and sort of storytelling type of pictures, and less sort of scientific and more folkloric. So I have some notes here that I'd like to just kind of go through. And so how did, one of the things that we say or think, how was the moon created, or how were different things created? And artists in their process usually will ask that question if they're, when they're going to create a series of paintings. Or maybe you might just start with one painting. And so that was my question, how did the moon come to be? And so I start to research. So there's the science part of it. There's the astronomy, and you go back to what theories have come across with the moon and how the Earth was created and the Big Bang. And when Earth was, it was kind of a big glob of mass, and supposedly an asteroid or something hit that mass and broke off a whole bunch of chunks of the Earth, and it wasn't spherical, so it was kind of, what I've read is it's more, what's the word, irregular shape. And so there were particles around the moon or around the Earth, and they started to orbit around the Earth. And some fell away and some stayed for a while. So I think what I had read was that Earth had a few moons in its conception. And then now we are left with one moon. And the moon that we have now it looks round to us, but it actually is an egg shape. So those are some interesting sort of scientific facts that I found out about the moon as I started to research. And then I thought, well, maybe the moon has different characteristics, and through the different cycles of the moon, what would the moon be, and what characteristics would that moon have? And then from different cultures, we all come from different backgrounds, and my background is mixed. It's Scandinavian, so the Vikings. So I had done a series of Viking moons, which none of them made into this series, but I have sketches that they might come into the next part of this Moon Being series. And Irish, and Eastern European, and South African, and all kinds of different cultures I'm drawing on. And then going through just kind of sketching and drawing sort of a character of the moon, and kind of bringing out different feelings. So, and also, artists that have inspired me. So Gustav Klimt is one of my favorite artists. And so this painting here, Eclipse, is a kind of a rip-off of Klimt's painting, The Kiss. And so it has a similar shape and very Klimt shapes and designs in the paintings. So and I love that, and I love his use of gold, and so a lot of people know Klimt's paintings, and he used to paint very large, and with lots of women in his paintings. So yeah, something to research if you want to check out his paintings. And I love sort of that folkloric look and connecting to the paintings, and kind of a storybook, folkloric. I love illustrations for children's books, and always have. As a child, that was one of my favorite parts of books, was the illustrations. And of course, I was an avid reader, but that kind of comes across in storytelling, because sometimes you can read words and maybe there's not the comprehension, but you can see a photograph or a painting or a photograph or a drawing, and that you can see the story from that. So that's what these paintings are. Hopefully they will elicit, is that the word, elicit, or bring up some questions and maybe make you tell your own story of some of the pieces. And I'm intrigued by lots of different types of art and artists, and sort of really, those shapes, like the circle is also, there's the sacred geometry. I don't know too much about sacred geometry, but there's the circles and squares and triangles, all the things we kind of know, and they have meanings. And circles, if you go into different cultures, circles have huge meaning. So the moon to us is a circle, the earth is a circle. We see stars as circles. And so in this series as well, the circle is one of the geometric forms that are also featured. And so I wanted just to go on to, a few facts about the earth as well, going back to the beginning. And it's part of my process too, is just kind of asking questions about the moon and seeing what comes up, and then I'll start to sketch. So, the moon is the Earth's only natural satellite. It's the 5th largest moon in the solar system. It's 403 kilometers away from the Earth. The moon orbits the Earth 27.5 days. The moon doesn't rotate on its axis. It takes, we'll try that again. The moon does rotate on its axis. It takes about 27 days to rotate. But I think that's wrong. I think it doesn't rotate. It just rotates around the Earth. I must have wrote that down wrong. We only see the near side of the moon. The moon is 107 degrees Celsius during the day, and it's minus 153 Celsius cold at night. The Earth's tides are largely caused by the gravitational pull of the moon. The most dramatic tides occur at new moons and full moons, and the moon reflects sunlight. And that's something interesting too I wanted to talk about, is we're made up of earth matter and moon matter. So we have the same ingredients as the earth and the moon. And of course we're 80% water, I think, something like that. So, we're moon matter and we're earth matter, and we're also stardust. So these are kind of magical things that, I thought about too when I was creating this show, and how those ingredients we're all one. We're all part of all of sort of the celestial bodies that surround us. There's different phases of the moon, and there's lunar eclipses, and I think about that too, like if you go back to our ancestors in the earlier days, I'm sure they freaked out, when a lunar eclipse happened, or even a solar eclipse. There these strange shadows going across these heavenly bodies, and of course they would have their stories connected to those types of things. The moon also, because it has its 27 days around the sun, it rotates around. It also is really good for people to have celebrations. Our ancestors would gather during those times because it was lighter. They could travel during those times because at nighttime the moon was out, and the night light was made it easier for them to travel and also to have celebrations. So those are other themes that kind of run through my pieces. And then, some of them are kind of fun, like I have a beluga moon whale, beluga whale moon. And, you just kind of think of the moon when it's near the ocean, when it starts to rise. And I thought, well, I could make it a mermaid, I could make it a whale. And so I kind of played with those concepts as well. So some of the pieces that you'll see in the virtual tour is me playing with the moon and crossing it with either a human form or a fish form, or a fish jumping out of the water to catch the moon, to eat it, or kiss it, you know, and then it becomes its own shape. It becomes, you know, like a moon with a fish body. So they're just kind of fun pieces, and they're really just to get storytelling going in and get us to be more inquisitive with the things that are around us, and the heavenly bodies, the moon and the stars and the asteroids, and I mean, we all love to gaze at night at the moon. So the moon is, for me, is associated with feminine energy. So most of the moons that you'll see have a feminine feel to them. It's our grandmother moon. Some people say mother moon. I call the earth my mother, and the sun, or not the sun, well, the sun has a more masculine energy, and the moon is a more feminine energy. And it really affects, you know, us and women as well. It pulls the water in our body, pulls our cycles around, and it also, if you talk to hospitals, you know, lots of babies are born at full moon, and people get a little crazy during the full moon. So those are kind of interesting things to think about as well with the moon. I think this kind of magic too with the moon, being that we're also made of the same material as the earth and the moon. Yeah, I think too, when the sun hits us, we reflect as well, just like the moon or the earth reflects the sun's rays. So it's that's kind of a little bit of magic. And you can, you know, the moon has, if you go to astrology, the moon in the different zodiac signs has different energies around that as well. So you can tap into the moon that way, and some of these paintings are, you know, sort of connected to a zodiac sign, which I haven't written the little stories about, but it just helped me to create the characters, these moonbeam paintings. We as humans learn to plant and, you know, harvest by the moon, and we realized, you know, when there was more moisture, sometimes with full moons there might be more moisture in the air, and so we would plant then, because the moon is pulling the water, is pulling the tides, and, you know, pulling the clouds, and so, you know, we really connected to the moon that way, which is planting our food. Just trying to see, I've got a bunch of other information that I've written here, but some of the, you know, there's some stories. The Generous Moon is a Nigerian folktale, and it's about the moon being seen all day and all night, visiting the earth and sharing meat to a starving woman during a famine. And I know there's First Nation stories about the moon, and Asian folklore is the rabbit moon, where the rabbit shares its body to a hungry old man who is a ruler of heaven in disguise. And there's lots of stories that sort of cross over that are very similar. And so when I created my paintings too, there was that sense of, you know, a little bit of storytelling behind that. Some of the names we've given the moon are blue moon, man in the moon, wolf moon, snow moon, worm moon, pink moon, rose moon, mead moon, flower moon, strawberry moon, sturgeon moon, harvest moon, full corn moon, hunter's moon, and there's like lots of different names of the moon. So I have lots of different names for my moons as well, as you'll go through, and each of the paintings has a story connected to it or some meaning. So if you have seen the show in person or you're seeing the tour virtually, Hopefully you'll see maybe a little bit of the story of the moon or some of the meanings of the moon. The paintings are in watercolor and acrylic. I've used powdered gold leaf and a metallic gold powder that I mix with water and sometimes a carrier to paint onto the paintings. I've used graphite. There's watercolor graphite that I paint with, so some of the pieces have a different feel to natural watercolor. I've embossed some of the gold into the painting with a little tool. Some of the paintings are with acrylic paint, like the ones that are behind me. These are acrylic. And the fine detail I get on some of these paintings, I use acrylic in a tube and I put a little nib on it, so sometimes I'll rip off a mechanical pencil, just I'll screw off that part and put it onto an applicator, and then I can draw with some liquid acrylic. So some of the fine detail you'll see in my paintings, like these ones too, are drawn with acrylic paint instead of painted with a brush. And just trying to think about the other mediums. Yeah, I love the flow of watercolor. I think too and acrylic is a water-based medium as well, and there's that connection as well with water and the moon and that connection there. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the show and ask questions about the moon, and also how you maybe want to create. And I hope that this show inspires you somehow in different ways. So thanks again for your time.